the way it works is you got all the 3A balances, all the elected officials together, all of them, all the bureaucrats together, and all the lobby groups. That's what's really making policy.
I'm a political man. And now, baby, step into my big black car. I'll show you what my politics are for. Yeah. So I didn't make my living as a singer. Guy came along, he's a political man. Been involved in politics 30 years. Worked in the state legislature and on campaigns and the whatnot. And you could tell he was a politician because he loved to talk. Loved to hear himself talk. And I let him. What the hell? It's interesting to find out how they view us. And nothing he says here really is, isn't something I don't think any of us haven't already figured out. But it's nice to get the perspective. And it's also nice to see what they don't know. As much as everybody thinks they know this, the things they don't know. If I had more time with this guy, or if I did a little bit more interrupting and asked him a few more pertinent questions, I might have been able to delve into some of the dark alley real questions of how things run. But he still gave enough. It was good. It was good. So at any rate, it's what I do out there, run into people. Hopefully some of them have something to say, give us some insight. And if you like it, you know what to do. Hit all the appropriate buttons and help me out, contribute, go to the description, and throw something to my kitty. Be nice. Really would appreciate it. All right, let's get to this one. I'll catch you on the other side.
I was very much an insider for a long time. So.
And what would you say is the worst thing you could about politics?
Politics?
Yeah, in general. What would you?
It's become very. I mean, you're old enough. It used to be people, not just that they were civil, but there's so much lack of information, or there's just. It's hard for people to get accurate information anymore because the media is very superficial,
right.
Left-leaning, but even Fox is very superficial.
Right, yeah.
It's just all about headlines, and so a lot of Americans that think they are following politics, they think they know this much, but they really don't know that much. It's very superficial these days. The newspapers are superficial. The TV is It's just there's very little. There's always a lot more going on than most people realize.
Yeah.
Even if you're a follower. And I was 30 years in politics, 16 years in the legislature, ran campaigns. I think Americans are very distracted people. I mean, they're thinking about slushies and oysters and how much we drank. They're so just distracted with their lives.
Right.
They really don't follow. And 30 or 40 years ago, there was less distraction. When I was a kid, there were 3 TV channels, 1 newspaper, Walter Cronkite. So that maybe now there's just so many more things that people are distracted by. 400 cable channels, professional cotton bowl, sugar bowl. They're thinking about all kinds of other stuff. So they don't really follow politics and government so well. And at the same time, the media has become very superficial and very slanted. So it's harder for people to really understand what's really going on. That was a big, long answer, wasn't it?
No, that's good. Because I mean, obviously, I a student of this, and I follow it, and I try to get and understand what is driving this whole engine and what's behind it. And I see a lot of it being orchestrated.
Yeah, there's you can call it orchestration, you can call it spin, you can call it, publicity, but there's a lot of spin, and there's a lot of spinners.
Well, how would you define the deep state?
That's another one. Everyone's got their own definition. If you mean the bureaucracy and the lobbyists, and especially in Washington, the bureaucracy is the government bureaucrats are huge.
Right.
Tens of thousands of them. They never get fired because they're civil servants. They can make things happen, or they can also slow walk, or kind of slow things down. Okay. The lobbyists and special interest groups, there's so many of them now, and they want what they want. Most lobbyists are paid a lot of money to protect some loophole in the tax code, or some special thing for real estate, or some special perk for agricultural exporters. There's so much federal government money that is spent to help all these special interest groups. And all those special interest groups and lobbyists in Washington, or my state capital, Topeka. Where are you from? Louisiana? And all 50 states. The lobby groups are smaller, but Washington D.C. is where the big ones are at, and they're all up there to protect money. It's all about money. They're protecting You're a big global exporter of agriculture. You hire me to go to the Capitol and protect loopholes in the tax code for you, or special export subsidies. And you hire me and you pay me $300,000 a year to do that for you. So I get paid a lot. So all of these special interest groups, left wing, right wing, most of them are kind of apolitical. They're all about the money.
Yes.
And the defense industry, that's one of the worst ones of all.
Oh yeah.
We overpay. If I buy, if I always make the joke, if you and I buy this hat, we pay $1. If the city of New Orleans will pay $5, the state government pays $10, the Pentagon will pay $20 for a $1 hat.
And where does all that other money go?
It comes out of our pockets, and it comes out of the budget deficit too.
Yeah.
Which is debt, which is we got a huge.
Well, then you got the black hole money. You give it
Yeah.
If they're paying $900 for a hammer, obviously that hammer didn't cost $900.
Yeah.
Where is that? All that extra money is going to the black hole budgets.
If you look at how government contracting, they over-specify a lot of things, not just the number of hats, but the hat has to be able to be hit with a flamethrower and not burn up. It has to be able to be dragged across the ocean underwater and still, a hat doesn't need to be made flamethrower proof, but the Pentagon is especially bad about over specifications. You look. This is just, I love picking on, and I'm a right winger, but I hate the military procurement's the worst one of all, because no one will question it.
Yes.
It's seen as unpatriotic. But look at a lot of the trucks, the various vehicles they have. World War II, the basic Willys Jeep, you could shoot right through it. But it would get you there, and it was cheap to build. Well, now they've got the Humvee, and now they want a new replacement of the Humvee. They got 6 different. Every truck they buy, all has to be custom designed. Why can't you just use a GMC Suburban? Or a Chevy Suburban, or a Ford, put some armor on it, but they can't. They got to, we can't have a $20,000. We got to have a custom designed $120,000 vehicle. Why can't you get by with a GMC Suburban? Every truck they have has to be custom designed. So they're the easiest one. But every agency now over specify. Highway construction, people. How come you got these orange barrels out there for months at a time, but no one's ever out there working? I call it, Dwight Eisenhower, Kansas guy. He, in his going away speech in 1960, he mentioned the military-industrial complex. He didn't actually say that word, but that's how it's been.
Well, he also mentioned the technological elites.
There's a highway industrial complex. There's healthcare research industrial. There's cancer research industrial complex. There's a whole bunch of people in D.C., a whole bunch of industries that are there to get money out of the federal government for military procurement, cancer research, healthcare, highway construction. And,
Well, isn't that the entropy of it, is the fact that, agencies tend to go ahead and take care of the agencies.
Yes, they do. It's getting more and more like that. Which there's still kind of work for you. We'll work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, but if you need a driver's license, you just have to wait. Does McDonald's have that? Does Burger King? Does this?
Yeah. Do we need 16 intelligent agencies?
Yeah. It's another example. They are. But if you go to Washington, congressman, and start questioning that stuff, they'll think you're a radical. They'll each of their 16 intelligence agencies has somebody in charge of publicity. It'll be a military guy in a nice uniform.
But there are a few. Let's say like there's the Rand Pauls or the Ron Pauls who will, and they will get a popular standing, but they don't get.
It's so hard to, because if you're a member of the House, you're one of 435.
Yeah.
If you're in the Senate, and part of it, you want to get stuff done. I was a state senator 16 years. We had 40 senators. And the only way to really get stuff done is you had to make relationships with people, with the other senators, and I struggled even with only 40. It was hard to get to know everybody fairly well. I can't imagine what in the U.S. House of Representatives, there's 435 of them. You'd never even meet them, let alone build a relationship. So that's in my opinion, how reforms can happen. Is you got to build relationships. You got to do it across the aisle. You got to do it with different factions. You got to find common, and it's harder and harder to do that because you can't. They have so little time. When I was a congressional staffer when I was really young. Reagan was still president, so it was 80, 87, 88, and at that time, my boss, back in the 60s, 70s, and the 50s. Those guys moved to Washington. They stayed there a month, 2 months. They took their wives, and they stayed there, and they played golf, and they went to eat, and they got to know each other.
Right.
So they could be civil, and they could get to know each other. Even in the late 80s, when I was still there, my boss only went back to Kansas twice a month, and he would fly out on Friday and come back on Sunday night, or maybe fly out on Thursday night and come back Sunday. He would only a 3-day, and he would. And now they're home. They fly home on Monday. And I'm sorry, they fly home Thursday night, stay 4 days in their district, and only 3 days in Washington. But the crazy thing is that's what the people want. They want, they want their congressman to be seen walking in the parade or having a town hall. But when you're doing all those things, you're not. Your job is in D.C. If you were a fireman, your job is to be at the firehouse or on the fire truck. Well, what if you're out on, you're not doing your job, and their job is in D.C. That's where the action is. But if they're back here in their districts kissing our asses all the time, then they're not really doing their job. They're listening. But good Congress, they pretty much already know what the issues are and they know what you want. But the citizens want all these congressmen to come back and listen to us. And when they're back here listening to us, they're not up there in D.C. building relationships and getting stuff done. And the other thing I would tell you, it's a very powerful concept, but the U.S. Constitution establishes a three-way balance of power. We're all taught the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, right? It's a three-way balance of power. And that is true constitutionally. It does work that way. But I tell everybody, operatively, the way it works is you got all the three-way balances, all the elected officials together, all of them, all the bureaucrats together, and all the lobby groups. That's what's really making policy. And most of these citizens out here, they know the lobbyists are up there, and they don't like the idea, but they don't realize how the bureaucrats can make stuff happen really quick or really, really slow. And I guarantee you the State Department right now, they hate Trump. I've done some private contracting with state. They're center, left of center. But so they can, they're part of the executive branch, the State Department is. They're supposed to report to the president, Mike Pompeo, who's Secretary of State, congressman from my state. But bureaucrats can make things go really slow if they want to. It's like if you're Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, I'm a bureaucrat who doesn't like Trump and I don't like you, I'll say, yes, sir, I'll get you that research next week.
Right.
And maybe next month I get around.
Well, that's been part of the.
Or I get you the research, but it's only partial. It's only a fraction of what
that's been part of what they say why a lot of things are not getting done, because he'll put out an order and it just.
Yeah, it's like running in mud up to your.
And Steve Bitchute, I don't know if you know who Steve Bitchute is, but Steve Bitchute was very big. He worked for several different administrations as a very deep stater. He wrote a lot of psychological warfare for us. He's out of right. Yeah. And he says the State Department is way too big.
And all of them, that's true, but all the agencies
have said, they need to be cut back. We need to trim everything back down.
You could cut 30%. You couldn't do it in 1 year, but you could honestly cut 5% out of each, all of it, including the military, 5% a year for 5 years, and they would be down to like a 300-pound. Right now they're like 400-pound guy.
Yeah.
You might, and it's just so hard. In Kansas, we're a much more conservative state. And we had in 2009, 2010, there was a kind of the economic bubble burst, the real estate bubble burst, and our state revenue went down. Our tax revenue went down, and we cut budget. First, we used up all our reserves, and then we cut. We thought we were cutting the bureaucracies, but in reality, they all have money stuff. They have. It's not that they're hiding it; it's in their budget, but they always can get by below. They buy fewer computers, they buy fewer pencils.
Well, I've heard also that there's 2 separate books they keep.
Well, I don't know if they really do that, but maybe in some local governments they might. But they've got plenty of money. In Kansas, we were always a more conservative run state. We were always a leaner budget. And despite in 2009, 10, and 11, we had to cut and cut and cut. And even at the end of all of that, they still had enough money to operate through. Yeah. They went through, started out as a fairly conservative run, operated state, totally Republican. And even after 3 years of budget cutting, they still had money left.
Yeah. I've talked to other guys at agencies who said that you hear it over and over again. They have, when it comes time to for the budget time, they have to go out and buy redundancy and get rid of all that excess money so they can ask for more money.
Yes, they do.
Otherwise,
I'll give you an example. I worked before I was in the Senate, after I was congressional staffer, but before I had a low-level appointed job in the state revenue department. Essentially the Kansas IRS. We call it the Department of Revenue. Every state has a Department of Revenue. And I was a low-level functionary there. And I remember at the end of the budget year, my supervisor came around and said, well, we have some money to spend, and you can choose. She showed me a list of on a keyboard, there's a little foam piece you can put across it to rest your arm so it's easier. Or a squeeze thing,
That's hilarious.
I could pick some of the little cheap shit. But, she was trying to use up the money. We got this money, we got to use it up. So you can pick a few of these toys, tell me what you want. Yeah. And she went to all 80 of us that worked in that department. The amount of money wasn't much, but the fact that's an example that I appreciate. They all have money at the end. Yeah. All these budgets can be cut, every one of them. I guarantee you, everybody in Washington will complain. All the special interests. Oh, it's the end of the world. Oh, you're cutting. You're going to hurt the morale of the troops. Oh, you're going to hurt You're going to hurt security. You're going to hurt. You won't.
Right.
They'll say it.
Yeah.
And they'll put out this big scare, but you really don't. Anyway, my wife's over there waiting.
It was a pleasure talking to Chris.
I'll give you a card.
Here's a get-out-of-jail-free card from Hillary Clinton. It's good for any crime in the world, as you well know.
I'll trade you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chris. It's a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for giving me your insights. I always appreciate it getting from someone that's been there. Because again, like you said, the people don't walk in the streets. They don't know.
They really don't.
They don't know what it's like. And so getting the inside info is always good. God bless you. How did he get in? I mean, how did he get in?
Trump?
Yeah.
I consider it kind of a fluke. So in the primary in 2016, most presidential primaries, think through your lifetime, you usually got about 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 4 candidates early on, and bit by bit they get winnowed down. The Republican Party had 16 candidates that year, governors and senators, and they were all fighting for the same little block of voters. And, you know, part of a campaign, especially running nationwide, is name recognition. They don't even know who Marco Rubio is. They don't know who Mike Huckabee was. You know, politicians think they're well known, but they really aren't. And in 2016, Bush, you know, it was Jeb Bush because his father and his brother had been. So but Trump already had two huge advantages. He had big name recognition already because Trump. And number two, he could self-fund. So he didn't have to spend all this time begging for money. And he was kind of just able to, one by one, the weaker candidates all dropped out. And he kind of just kept surviving, and he was being politically incorrect, and he was kind of this outside candidate, and was able to basically outlast all the kind of insider guys. I started out supporting Jeb Bush because I thought he had the best chance to win. He dropped out. Then I supported Marco Rubio. Because ultimately, as a Republican, I think it's good that we need to get the Latinos on our side. That's a whole other discussion. Mexicans are really culturally conservative people, and they're fiscally conservative people. They've been kind of pushed into the Democrat camp. We need to. If you're
a lot more of them going into the.
If you're a conservative thinking person, if you're the biggest thing we need, because these really young white lefty liberal, the snowflakes, we're never going to win those little fuckers back, and they're weak white people. But the Mexicans, if you get to know Mexican people, they're culturally conservative. Yeah, they work hard. They're not into politically correctness either. They don't give a shit about that. They're our best long-term allies.
Well, being out here in the street, I'm getting a pretty good view of what the general consensus is. I'm seeing a lot more blacks, a lot more Latinos. Asians really like Trump. But you brought up one of the things that got him in, I think, that was really a big factor, that was kind of like an X factor. One, he wasn't a politician.
Correct.
I think people were just sick of politicians.
Yes.
I don't care who it was. But I was running into a lot of people that had never voted before in their lives.
Yes.
They were off the radar and said, this is the first guy I'm going to vote for.
Yeah, because he was so different.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Hillary was she epitomized Washington insider. Yeah. Been there forever, insider. Yeah. And that 2016 election was either you're for the insiders or you're for the outsiders. Yeah. You're an insider or not. Yeah. And so it was kind of, honestly, it was a bit of a fluke election. If it would have been Trump versus maybe Joe Biden, Biden might have won. Yeah. But Hillary it was a particular time where she was particularly the wrong candidate, and he was this outsider guy. So
who do you think's going to run against him this year?
It's hard to tell.
I know.
I mean, bit by bit, they're winnowing down. I mean,
do you think it might be a brokered convention and Hillary jumps in again?
She would lose again.
Oh, of course she would. I don't think any of them can beat him if the economy stays strong.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody can beat him. But I'm looking at a brokered convention because nobody's winning anywhere.
If they ever get Bernie and Elizabeth Warren to unite, like one of them drop out and support the other, that's the single biggest chunk. Those two together have a bigger followership than Biden. And they also, I used to be a Democrat, so the worker bee faction and the younger vote favors Elizabeth Warren and Bernie, because those two are on the left. They're more radical left change oriented. So I have a lot of Democrat friends on Facebook. I got 3,000 friends on Facebook, so I follow what a lot of people are saying. I'm just saying that the older white Democrat voters like Biden, but the younger faction, which is the growing faction, which is the more younger left, they like.
Yeah, but there are some issues. It's just like Biden came out the other day and goes, I'm going to get rid of all fossil fuels and arrest the...
1 second.
Yeah.
I'll meet you at the other end of this building.
God, thank you. I'm sorry to take up any so informative. I left. I just picking his brain.
I'll just meet you kind of by Cafe Du Monde.
But, the whole global warming aspect of this thing, it just blows everything out of the water because there's a huge, when you talk about the energy industry, we're talking about that's our economy. That is a huge
Earth has warmed and cooled and warmed and cooled and warmed and cooled.
Yeah, that's I think
millions
for one.
Of years.
I helped start the Institute for Environmental Alternatives, Professor Ron Cohn, 1971. So I've studied a great deal of this. And I talked to enough professors out here, and I've studied this and learned it. I know that this whole global warming, climate change thing is more a political run.
It's ginned up quite a bit. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of truth and a whole bunch of exaggeration.
Exactly. So they're using it as a political pawn. I think a lot of people see through that. That's why even no matter how much the media pushes it it's still not going anywhere.
Mid to late 70s, they were worried about global cooling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then along came Al Gore. Well, now it's global warming.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute, it's cooling now, and now it's neither one of those.
Yeah.
It's just change.
And like
This
you
change is
say,
more like
it's cycles.
generic.
I mean, I spoke to Professor David Dilley out here, 40 years, climatologist. He's got a whole bunch of PhDs after him, and he's worked for all the weather services and whatnot. And he can't find anybody to debate him because he's a skeptic.
Right.
Right. So he says, they will not debate me because I will blow this whole global warming thing out of the water. So people realize it's a hoax, yet the media and the politicians keep on trying to push it. And I think there's a whole block of this country that are just not going to go there.
Well, there's so many people that follow, all they have for a source is the mainstream media. And as I said before, the mainstream media is very shallow.
And they're getting shrinking all the time.
Well, they are. Well, the newspaper. Fewer people read newspapers, but more people take stuff off of, video, TV or online or social media. So social media, old-time newspapers are shrinking.
Oh, yeah,
Social
they're
media's
dying.
expanded
They're
huge.
dying to death. I spoke to a Fox News guy out here not long ago. He's from San Francisco, news director. And he says the news is dying. He says it's dead.
Well, I should go catch up with.
All right, God bless
Good
you.
luck.
Hey,
Good luck,
and Happy
and
New Year to you.
I should get because I still think it's going to be a really close election next year or this year, and it's going to come down to those swing states: Florida, North Carolina. Because remember, it's all about the Electoral College.
Well, yeah, but I'm still going with the Vegas odds, and they have Trump at even money.
Okay. Well, he's been slowly gaining. I mean, the economy's going to hold up. People want to trade deals.
The idiots that are on the left have all put that in his hand. They all idiots.
Tell your friends. It's still going to be a close election.
I told my son I wouldn't even claim him anymore if he voted for anybody else.
Cheers, y'all.
All right, guys.
A political pun. Yeah. Here's for Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio to start out. Well, right there kind of pretty much, typifies the shallowness of the. It's not just the bureaucracy he was talking about, that it's a deep state. It goes much deeper than that. But most of you guys listening to me already know that. You also know I need some help. So hit all the right buttons and then contribute something if you can. All right, God bless you. Thanks for stopping by. Remember, if you can't do anything else, pray for me. If you can do everything else, pray for me. I'm going to need it out there. You're going to need it out there. So let's pray for each other. Maybe something will work out. God bless you. See you on the streets.